They go to bed with 6 TDs that are air runners. That was an awesome game. I gotta tell you, to go down to Texas against a 5-0 team on the road and have that kind of performance. It reminds me of what it's going to look like on November the 6th. You know, not only did I wear my Patrick tie about our enthusiasm, but I carried my phone with me, which is blaze orange and camouflage. That reminds me, after this election, I'm going to get to sit in a tree stand with my 10-year-old daughter for her first deer hunt after we have just elected Mitt Romney the next president of the United States. Hey, you got your Halloween costume already. That's awesome. We went. You know what was great? It's so good to be home, by the way. You know, to go to mass in your own parish, to watch Packers on TV, and we went out and got our kids' costumes yesterday. It is so fantastic to be home. It's great to be here on the road with my brothers, and it's great to be here with my friend, our Governor, Scott Walker. Say thank you for coming out so early. Thank you for standing in the long lines. Thank you for being here with us today. Let's not forget, early voting starts pretty soon. So you can vote early. You can vote early absentee so that you can make sure we work on making phone calls, getting people to the polls. Yeah. Because you know what we learned here in Wisconsin? We learned that men with enough conviction. I see Alberta Darling sitting right over there. I see Rebecca Baker sitting right there. We learned that if you say to people, here's who I am, this is what I believe, and this is what I'm going to do, in Wisconsin, we elect them, and then they go do it, and that's exactly what we're going to do in the United States of America. We're going to take on these changes in this country. We're going to get the job done and get people back to work. That's what we've done here in Wisconsin. We've learned how to do this. We have leadership. That's what we're demonstrating here in Wisconsin. Leadership. Look at that debt clock over there. Look at how fast those numbers are running. When President Obama came into office, it was more than $5 trillion lower. The president came into office saying he would cut the deficit in half in his first term. He's given us 4 years of trillion-dollar deficits. He has added almost more public debt than almost all previous presidents combined. Not only do we have a string of broken promises, not only do we have a string of a lack of leadership, this debt is not only hurting our economy today, it is guaranteeing that these young kids who are getting their Halloween costumes, who are going to go out trick-or-treating, have a diminished future. We have never done that in this country before. We have never knowingly given our kids an inferior standard of living, a diminished future, but that is exactly what we are doing by piling up this mountain of debt, by giving these deficits. And it takes leadership to confront this. That's what Mitt Romney and I are offering. We are not going to run away from these problems. We're going to run at these problems to solve these problems before they go out of control. That's what we have to do. I want to thank Carroll University for hosting us here today. No pioneers. But I look at the state of play today. I look at the economy today. I look at the fact that half of all our recent college graduates are either not working in the field that they studied or are working at all. That is unacceptable. 23 million Americans struggling to find work. 15% of Americans living in poverty today. That's the highest rate in a generation. This is not acceptable. This is not what America looks like. We are on the wrong track. And the good news is, if we get ahead of our problems, if we tackle our problems before they tackle us, we can get America back on the right track. And these young kids coming out of school come to an economy of opportunity, to come to an economy where they can make the most of their lives, because that's the American dream. Let's take a look at, I see a lot of familiar faces here. I've been over 500 town hall meetings in Wisconsin. So you know I'm a PowerPoint guy. So let me get into this a little bit if I could. There are monitors all around. Take a look at our debt. Now if you look at this debt here, it looks like a big mountain over on the left. That's World War II. We've had debt in America before. We've always had debt. People have debt. What matters is how much debt you have relative to your income. You only buy so much house to only take so much mortgage that you can cash flow based on your paycheck. It works the same way for countries as well. And sometimes you have a lot of debt. You know, Scott mentioned the USS Wisconsin. That was such a moment. My mom told me afterwards, my mom's from Fond du Lac. And she's born and raised there. Her dad was a Navy man. And so in World War II, they moved around quite a bit. And they got to go on the deck of a brand new ship for a family day, and that was on the USS Wisconsin out in San Francisco. So my mom was there as a little girl in World War II, and to be able to go out on that deck to represent our state was a great opportunity. But to think of what our veterans have done for our country, to think about what our World War II veterans and our veterans, I see veterans around you because I see it on your hats. Thank you for giving us the freedom we have today. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for your love for our country. I see one there. I see one over there. Thank you for what you've done. Take a look at that mountain there. That's World War II. We lent our government our money to fight and win World War II. Our debt got as high as the size of our economy. We borrowed a little more than 100% of our gross domestic product. And you can have high borrowing like that so long as it's temporary, so long as it's for a dedicated purpose, and you know it's going to go back down after that. And so that's what we did back then. We sold war bonds. Our citizens gave our government their money, what they lent to them to fight and win World War II, and then our debt went down after that. Look at where we are right now. This is what our government is telling us our debt is going to become. This is where we are headed. Our debt is scheduled to literally get off the charts. It's supposed to go to more than 2.5 times the size of our economy by the time my kids are my age. Jan and I live in James. We live on the block we grew up on. We've got 3 kids who are 7, 9, and 10 years old. We know, without a shred of doubt, that we are consigning the next generation to this path of debt. That we're racking up so much bills in our generation that we're guaranteeing that they will not have a better future, that they will have a diminished future. That's unsustainable. We can't keep doing that. We have a moral obligation for the sake of our economy today, but for the sake of the next generation to secure the American dream for our children and our grandchildren. And that means leaders got to get ahead of this problem. Now, as I mentioned, we've had debt before. And usually we lend it to ourselves. Americans buying treasury bills to lend it to the American government, right? Well, back in 1970, we had a $283 billion debt. 6% of our debt was owned by foreigners, by foreign governments, meaning 94% was owned by Americans. We borrowed more money, the debt got bigger, and by 1990, our debt was $2.4 trillion. That's our public debt. That's how many bonds we had to sell. 19% of our debt was owned by foreign governments. So we still owe the majority of the money we borrowed to ourselves. Well, look at where we are today. Our public debt is so big that its public debt is $11 trillion. Our total debt is over $16 trillion. 48% of the money we borrow is from other countries. Countries like China, number 1. Japan number 2. What this means is we have to go to other nations to borrow money from them to pay for our government today. We can't keep doing this. We lose our independence. We lose our sovereignty. It's pretty tough to stand up to China when they steal our intellectual property rights, when they subsidize their businesses to unfairly compete against ours, when they're our biggest banker. We need to get this debt under control so that America can be in control of its own destiny, its own financial future, so that we can maintain our sovereignty and our own independence. That helps our economy as well. Take a look at your share of the debt. Now, I've been throwing trillions and billions and all of these things. What does this mean for individuals, for families? When President Obama came into office, he did inherit a tough situation. Problem is, he made things worse. Problem is when you see this most predictable crisis ahead of you, a debt crisis, what leaders do is they solve those problems. Here's what the president did. He didn't offer a solution. He waited for others like ourselves to offer ours, and then he just attacks. Then he runs negative campaigns. He distorts. The president has been going around the country lately saying he has a plan. You know, I found that kind of interesting. I attended one of his speeches where he mentioned this plan of his. And he said, I've got a plan to deal with this. We were like, great. He's got a plan. Let's start talking. Let's see his plan. We put ours on the table. Mitt Romney's put a lot of ideas on the table how to fix this problem. That's how you start problem solving. So we called his office, his budget office, and said, hey, can you send us the plan? We'd like to see it. The budget office said, well, they referred us over to the press secretary. The press secretary sent us a copy of the speech. We asked the Congressional Budget Office, could you analyze the president's new plan to deal with the deficit? They said, it's a speech. We don't estimate speeches. That's the problem. The president gives lots of speeches, but he's not actually putting plans on the table. Leaders lead by putting specifics on the table, by saying, here's how I'm going to solve this problem, not by giving good speeches. And then people think these